Hello, I am Matt Williamson at Williamson NFL, here to break down an excellent Steeler victory, even deeper than we did yesterday. Steelers win in Cincinnati, obviously. We've got the Brownies around the corner here who played tonight. I am recording this right before kickoff, so no comment there, but I love that the Browns are going to Denver, tough place to play, physical team, and then have a short week and have to come here. I mean, for you guys that don't know, the Browns will probably get back to Cleveland at like 6 a.m. on Tuesday morning. That makes for a tough week, a real tough week. Tomorrow I will record our weekly mailbag stuff. So if you want to get me questions, hit me up at Williamson NFL on Twitter, or comments in YouTube would be fine as well. But as we always do, the day removed from the game, we're going to talk about snap counts first, and then I got all kinds of observations. Out of 68, Moore, McCormick, Frazier, Jones all played 68. Russell Wilson came out for 2. Siamalu came out for 2. So they both played 66. George Pickens played 62 out of 68 snaps. That is a substantial workload for an NFL wide receiver. Freiermuth, love to see this. Next up at 54, he's been too low throughout the year. I think they're starting to really dedicate him as the number 2 receiver, I hope. Van Jefferson played 42. Najee played 35. Darnell Washington, 33. Michael Pruitt, 25. 25 for Warren. 23 for Skoranek. Interesting player. We're going to talk about him a little bit more, too. Just 17 for Mike Williams. Yeah, we'll bring up all these guys. Him not so exciting. Calvin Austin, 16, but obviously there was an injury there. Patterson for 10. Hayward for 5, which is thinking about right at this point. My favorite, Minka for 2. Gotta love that. That means you're in victory formation. Spencer Anderson trotted out there for 2 snaps as an extra offensive lineman in short yardage, and Fields was out there for 2 as well. Don't always dig into the opponent in terms of snap count, but a couple things stood out to me with the Bengals offense. So their tight ends were all in a row here. There was 4 tight ends in a row when you sort this by highest snap count first, like I always do. Sample at 39. He's going to be your chip guy, mostly on Watt. Gesicki, who's a pure receiver, doesn't block a soul, at 27. Tanner Hudson does a little bit of everything at 12. Cam Grandy, he played 9. And I also want to make note that Khalil Herbert, the backup running back, actually came in there for 6 snaps. Going into this game, Chase Brown had every touch since the Zach Moss injury. And then they put Matt Lee, who they list as a center, but he's their 6th offensive lineman. They utilized 6 offensive linemen on 3 snaps. Now, Steelers defense. Queen and Fitzpatrick played every snap. They played 62. Porter for 60, Jackson for 59, Elliott for 56. Pretty big workload for Herbig, 52. That's a lot for a sort of undersized guy. Watt played 47, 45 for Sutton, 43 for Cam. Phenomenal snaps. Peyton Wilson at 35, Benton at 35, Ogunjobi at 33. I like Ogunjobi, but I want Benton outsnapping Ogunjobi. So I thought that was a good start there. 25 from Preston Smith. I'll take it. Quality. Landon Roberts for 21. KZ for 15. Loudermilk for 14. Lowry for 6. Bishop for only 6. So we are drifting much, much more to Sutton being the nickelback, not Bishop. Moon was out there for 5. I actually didn't even notice that. And Killebrew for 2. I'm kind of liking, you guys hopefully have listened all year. I'm sure some of you are new, but I think their snap distribution is better now than it's been at any point in the year. Yeah, I really do. And some of the, obviously, injuries factor in and different things and who you play, of course. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA and college basketball, NHL, to UFC and MMA as well. Head to Bet Online today and get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online, the game starts here. So you probably know some of these things by now. 520 total yards. Most in the game by the Steelers since 2018. 44 points were their most in a road game since 2000. Their point total was their most since posting 42 in a win over the Panthers in 2018. Now you guys remember what the Steelers looked like in 2018. Nothing like they've looked like the last couple of years. I'm not saying this is Ben and Bell and AB, but you start flirting with that company with production. Yeah, baby. I didn't realize this. I didn't realize it was this extreme, that it was a 3-to-1 ratio. But in the first half, they threw the ball 27 times and only ran it 9. I think the pick six right off the bat probably factored in a little, like, we better not slow play this thing. But I also think it's just trusting Wilson. I mean, it's a bad defense. You have to score points. You didn't play Steeler, grind it out, run, pass, first down, second down, run over and over. Came out throwing at a 3-to-1 ratio in the first half. And obviously that changed in the second half, often with the lead, but you ended up with 38 pass attempts and 26 rushes. So Mike Sando is a friend of mine. We used to work at ESPN together. Now he works for The Athletic. He put this out there, and I found it just pretty interesting. So Mike Tomlin has coached 305 games. 305, folks. Makes you feel kind of old, doesn't it? And what Sando did was he put this game, where did it rank in the 305 that Tomlin has head coached? And he put a bunch of different categories. And I'm not going to get into all of them, but I just found it interesting that this was the 5th best success rate out of 305, the 12th best explosive pass rate, the 12th most first downs ever out of 305 games. The 13th most yardage offensively. Points per drive, 3.4, 17th. Offensive points, 20th. EPA, 22nd. EPA per play, 25th. So, again, this is a massive, massive sample size, and these are at the top of any Tomlin-led offense. Per Next Gen Stats, Wilson leads all qualified passers in completion percentage over expectations on throws over 10 yards downfield. He was 8 and 9 of those throws against the Bengals, which included a handful of throws between the numbers. There were more of that, too. Now, I thought this was interesting. His 5.1 average depth of target was the lowest of the season. He also got the ball out in 2.8 seconds. Also, the fastest of the season. And they still created explosives, and he had a season-high 30% explosive pass rate, despite not throwing deep ball after deep ball. He accepted the checkdowns. He threw 34% of his attempts to running backs in this game. Well, and I'm a little shocked that, we talked about this yesterday, Cincinnati just allowed those underneath throws over and over to the running backs. Okay, some red zone stuff. This is something I got from Dale, and we were talking about today on the drive too, and I think it's really noteworthy that the Steelers scored touchdowns on their first 2 trips inside the Cincinnati 20. Okay, they got a 17-yard touchdown catch from Pickens, a 10-yard touchdown run from Najee. So they're 2 for 2 in the red zone there. But the third trip came in the red zone at the very end of the first half when he hit Warren to get to the 16-yard line. Then they kicked the field goal as time expired. So, yes, that was a failed red zone trip, but you got in there and kicked the field goal. You didn't have any time to operate in the red zone. So that counts as a failed red zone trip. Again, these real small sample size things, these things are going to happen a lot. And then the same thing happened in the final red zone trip of the game. So fourth quarter, less than 5 minutes in the game. They're up 41-31. Now, of course, they would have liked to score a touchdown, but they also wanted to wind the clock. So they kept running the ball and forced the Bengals to take their remaining timeouts. And even if you remember, Wilson, quote, took a sack, but that was better than throwing it in the seats because the clock kept going. I mean, it wasn't a bad sack. It was like a minus 1 yard play. So then they kick a field goal to go up 13. So that was not necessarily a great red zone trip, but the goal was eat the heck out of the clock, eat the heck out of their timeouts, still get points. Mission accomplished, Trey Hendrickson, kind of a ghost in this one. He came in with 11.5 sacks, didn't have any in this game, 1 assisted tackle, 1 quarterback hit all day. Yeah. So not only did we talked about the running backs are contributing heavy, but they had 9 catches for 99 yards and a touchdown amongst all tight ends. Obviously, most of that Freiermuth, but a lot of running back tight end production in this game. A lot. Wilson also utilized the running backs, of course. They ended up with 13 catches for 146 yards. Yeah. Some other note here in terms of shares. Najee Harris, he went out for a couple plays, but he's fine. His 72.7 running back rush share was his highest since week 1. And he looked great doing it and handled the workload extremely well. But I'm not looking into this in a negative way. This is just more of the usage of tight ends and wide receiver, or tight ends and running backs. Pickens' 16.7 target share against the Bengals was his lowest when playing with Russell Wilson. Not worried about that. I mean, they just went elsewhere with the football. They spread the ball around. 10 guys caught balls, That being said, Mike Williams, you got to catch the passes. You got to contribute. You know what I mean? You've been out there. I mean, now this is, 3 games in a row that he's been out there playing 15 to 25 snaps. He's a ghost. I mean, I just don't think he's getting open. I thought this was interesting. In the first half, Austin played 12 snaps in 11 personnel. One running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. Where Skoranek played 8. So it was 12 to 8 in the first half, basically as who's your slot receiver. But then when Austin got that injury, the big hit, Skoranek totally took over the slot role. I mean, so he was totally the slot guy in this with Austin out of the game. And if Austin misses this one, I think that'll be Skoranek, who's way different than Austin, of course. But I think he's a fun, useful player. I mean, he blocks, he's nasty, he's a really good gunner. I think we're really happy he's a Steeler, to be honest with you. Nice pickup. Some O-line stuff. I thought it was a very encouraging day for 4/5 of the offensive line, and unfortunately it was Siamalu. Well, it's unfortunate about who it is, that had a tough day. And he's had more of those than you'd like this year, to be very honest with you. We'll see. I mean, we'll talk about offseason stuff when we get there, but hasn't been a wonderful year for Isaac. I'm a fan, but encouraging game for the right side of the line, though. McCormick is keeping it up. I think Jones has been noticeably better post-bye. Maybe kind of got his mind right, got away from the game, slowing things down for him a little bit better. In terms of the Bengals defense, I love to credit the opponent, but I don't think anyone played well on their defense. No one. Who played well for the Bengals D? Not a soul. Davis Gaither, the replacement linebacker, was incredibly bad. Penalties and just flat out poor play. I'm sure a lot of you guys still like Mike Hilton. I get that. But he looks like he's losing a step in a big way. I mean, Austin ran right past him. This is huge. I mean, you guys that listen to me, I've been talking about this. That was one of my things on my soapbox last week. But early down success rate. I know this might not mean anything to you, but they had a 0.38 EPA per play on early downs. That's very high. So what that means is, and I've explained this before, is every time they snap the ball is the equivalent of scoring 0.38 points on early downs. Way better than it's been. And I know this defense stinks, don't get me wrong, but what are you supposed to do against bad defenses? Destroy them. And they didn't get the third down nearly as much. That's great. All right, let's flip this thing to some defensive observations. Now, the defense did struggle on a down-to-down basis. Like when you look at just success rate, what percentage of plays were a successful one for the Bengals? Well, they were in the 95th percentile. They were really good, but really bad for the Steelers D. But all the splash plays made up for it. You know, one return for a touchdown, two forced fumbles, one you return for a touchdown, interception, 4 sacks. Watt's 5 forced fumbles leads the NFL. He and Herbig lead the NFL in strip sacks, along with Myles Garrett. Alex Highsmith led the NFL in forced fumbles in 2022. They are ridiculously good at forcing fumbles and swatting passes. I mean, these are just not accidents at this point. Leader of the swatting passes, of course, Cam Hayward, who I thought was the best player on the field, even better than Wilson, even better than Burrow. 5 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits, and yet another pass defense. He has 14.5 career sacks against the Bengals. That's the most by any player against the Bengals in their history, although Watt now has 14, so he's beaten down the door to set that record. He already has it against the Ravens and Browns. Hayward has 50 tackles and 6 sacks on the season. He also has 17 hits and 8 pass defenses, swats. Like, that's a lot if it was Joey Porter. That's a lot for a defensive back. 8 pass defenses is a huge number, basically for any defensive player, let alone somebody that's not in coverage. It's insane. I really think he's been the best defensive tackle in the league this year. I really do. So they had 4 sacks, as you know, but 11 quarterback hits. Big number. I thought they got some good snaps by Loudermilk, who hasn't been my favorite Steeler, but I thought they got some good snaps out of him. Look at the Bengals O-line. Orlando Brown was quite terrible, even though he's allowed to leave early for some reason. And both their guards were horrendous. We could talk some Bengals stuff in the offseason, but they have a lot of work to do this offseason. And along those lines, I mean, Burrow put this team on his back. He looks so frustrated. And he only had a 2.61 time to throw. I meant to bring that up earlier. So they got these hits and sacks and forced fumbles, even though the ball was coming out really quick. I mean, on average, 2.61 is really low. This is crazy. This is kind of just making fun of the Bengals now to wrap this thing up. So for the 3rd time this season, the Bengals scored 35 points. Cincinnati is 1-2 when they score 35 points. The rest of the league is 35-0. So let's change that to 22 points. They've gotten there 6 times. More than any team in the league. You score 33 points 6 times throughout the course of the season. It's crazy. The rest of the league is 52-1 when they score 33 points. The Bengals are 2-4. No team has ever had 4 losses with 33 plus points in a single season. And the Bengals have now done that with 5 games to go. That's insane. Over the last 2 seasons, Cincinnati's 13-16. This year and last year combined. Ugh. So, Baltimore lost. I mean, you got a 1.5 game lead in the division. Baltimore goes on bye. No matter what happens in Steelers-Browns, the Steelers will be in first place this time next week. Steelers are 6-2 in conference games. Ravens are 5-4. Ravens are a tough spot. They're in a real tough spot. They need to figure some things out for sure in the bye week for them. But meanwhile, we'll do mailbag tomorrow and start digging into the Brownies yet again. We just faced them, so not a lot has changed. But again, I am recording this before they snap the ball Monday night. Psyched to see how the Browns look in Mile High. Over and out.